Okay, do you want to hear a joke? I played a game of quiet tennis this summer. It's just like tennis, but without the racket. You see, jokes in Zoom are funny because you just assume everybody's laughing. Here's another one. There's a fine line between a numerator and a denominator. Only a fraction of you probably get that joke. These are just some of the jokes that have been posted on a tree in my neighborhood. There is a new joke every day. I call it the joke tree, and I look forward to seeing what new humor that tree has to offer me. I think the jokes are pretty funny. And I like jokes. I tell them a lot. It started a few years ago when I was speaking to a group of parents at the school where I worked. I told a joke and everyone laughed. And it felt like everyone relaxed just a little bit. It wasn't a particularly good joke, and I can't say that my delivery was amazing, but even the act of telling a bad joke can elicit a smile and reminds us that at heart, we are all just silly humans going through this life as best we can. We all have humor in us. It's that thing that makes us hop on one foot and try to touch our tongue to our noses in the grocery store. You don't do that? Well, have you ever thought about it? Have you ever been in a crowded place? Okay, think back before social distancing and heard a song playing and thought about just breaking out into song and singing loudly or breaking out into an elaborate dance. I'm not saying you actually did that, but have you thought about it? Did it make you smile to envision yourself that way? Laughter has a way of bringing people together. As children, we did it all the time, but then we grow up and many of us stop being silly and we stop telling jokes and we stop actively trying to make others smile. And you really don't have to be funny to make someone smile. Personally, I think I'm hilarious, but not everyone agrees. Ask my children. However, when I tell them a joke, even a terrible one, they can't help but smile. Yes, they are groaning while they smile, but it is a smile nonetheless. Some people pick their noses, but not me. I was born with mine. Did you smile? How did it feel? I hope it brought a tiny bit of joy to your morning. Let me know when you're ready for another joke. I'm happy to share. The joke tree has a new one every day.
The name of my piece is simple. I like being in nature. I grew up backpacking, but it's an activity that an aging body and disinterested husband did not survive. Fortunately, even an urbanized version of nature soothes and nourishes me. And I am lucky enough to be within a short drive of both the bay, where I can be by water, and the hills, where I can be in the trees. I can get my fill of the skies and the clouds anytime. I thrive on these snippets of nature. I often pray on these walks and usually feel deep gratitude. I come away recharged and more at peace. It is puzzling to me that of my family of 4, I am the only one who seeks out nature. I blame Los Angeles. Sometimes I blame my husband. I moved to West Los Angeles when I got married. It had its advantages. My husband had a secure job, and I was less than 2 hours from my family in Ventura. But nature, I found that hard to access. We lived just 5 miles from the beach, and I love the beach. But 5 miles in LA can be daunting, especially when you spend just as much time looking for parking as getting there. I was turned off by the difficulties. I wanted my nature fixes to be easier and free from anxiety. but nothing in LA fit that bill. As a result, I didn't share my love of nature with my children at a critical age. There was the spring I told my husband Lee that if I didn't spend time in trees that summer, everyone in the family would come to regret it. What choice did he have but to say yes? Since Lee is not a nature person, I guess I shouldn't have been surprised by his juvenile behavior the day before we left for this vacation, right? While I was busy rushing around, packing clothes for myself and our two children, and food and entertainment for all of us, not only was Lee not helping me, but he was grousing, moping, and complaining insistently that this vacation would be a disaster. I finally snapped and told him to stay home. The next day, we all made it into the car. We arrived at Big Basin at a tent cabin in the midst of trees and next to a river. Within 10 minutes of our arrival, Lee turned to me and said, "You were right." One thing I can say about Lee, he is sometimes unreasonable, but he's quick to admit when he was wrong, much quicker than I am. I like to hold on to my grudges. Another way that LA disappointed me was the relentless blue skies. I would actually wake up in LA, look out the window, and groan because there wasn't a cloud in the sky. I love clouds, but spoiled, I know. Shortly after we moved here, Lee and I were driving on a magnificent day with stupendous clouds being blown across the sky. I was gushing about how beautiful the sky was and how happy it made me. Lee turned to me, laughed affectionately, and said, "You are so simple." People don't always know how to react to this story. After all, my husband just called me simple. But this is one of the most treasured compliments I have ever received. How lucky I am that something as simple as a sky filled with clouds brings me such joy.
It's been a rough year. Of course, the changing of the guard in Washington and the COVID vaccines have brought so much welcome hope and light these past few months. But still, it's been a tough slog through the last 12 months. So I've been looking for ways to get my mind off the bad stuff and focused on what brings me joy. And so I've taken to heart that Albert Einstein quote, the one that says, "There are only two ways to live your life. One is as though nothing is a miracle. The other is as though everything is a miracle." I've been keeping a deliberate eye out for miracles, and so I have been noticing some excellent ones. For example, not so long ago, I was moisturizing my face before bed, as I always do. And I pulled back my hair so I could get to my ears, which I sometimes leave out, but I was trying to be thorough that evening. And I saw, not for the first time, but still it struck me afresh, that my ears are exactly like my dad's. I can't get a good look at my ears without thinking, Daddy. Now, when I was a little girl and would visit my dad's hometown in Clendenin, West Virginia, folks there would call me Little Jack because they thought I looked just like he did when he was a little boy. Well, I could always see the resemblance, but when I look at my ears, now they are dead ringers for my dad's ears. So then I started thinking about the whole DNA replicating wonder of life on this planet, and it blows my mind. How can something as microscopically tiny as a sperm, carry all the information to tell my body to make ears exactly like my dad's. Heredity is a miracle. The whole growing up thing is a miracle. My kid, who 19 years ago was about the size of a football, now has to bend down to give me a hug. That is so amazing. Another thing that's amazing, hummingbirds. The way they can just stay there suspended in air, their little wings just fluttering so fast you can't even see them. And that green iridescence in their feathers. They're just one little package of miraculousness that never failed to take my breath away. So then I think, how fast do their wings beat? And no sooner do I type in, how fast do, and Google finishes the question for me and spits out the answer. 50 to 80 beats per second. The Google search engine is another amazing miracle. Can you imagine what our ancestors or even our childhood selves would think if they could just pop into life today? We blithely carry around these high-powered computers in our pockets and think nothing of bringing them out to talk face-to-face to someone halfway around the globe, or look up facts about hummingbirds, or take videos of our cats. Cats are miraculous. Our cat, Tino, shakes his fanny a little bit, and then silently and seemingly effortlessly leaps almost 3 feet straight into the air and lands noiselessly on my desk. If I could do that, I could leap to the top of our house in a single bound. I wish I could always remember that life is amazing and full of wonder, that I am surrounded by miracles every day. Because to be full of wonder is to be in a state of grace and gratitude. I love feeling that way, but I don't seem to be able to sustain it. There was a time when I chalked that up to personal failure. If I was only a more advanced being, I thought, I'd always be able to remember that life is a precious gift and not waste time in fear and loathing. But I don't think that way so much anymore. Clearly, we are meant to take the whole ride. The anxiety and anger and impatience and feeling burdened by life, it seems to be an inevitable part of the journey. But I still want to put a thumb on the scales a bit in favor of more wonder and less fear and anger. So being on the lookout for miracles, I find, is a rather helpful way to do that. Another example. A while back, Peter and I were complaining about the government, and Peter said, well, at least we're not like the 140 million people in Russia who could get locked up for talking like this. And I thought, there's another one. That old mundane freedom of speech that we so take for granted. Indeed, our nation's whole 245-year-old democratic experiment is every bit a miracle. And that it withstood the assault of the last 4 years is another one, worthy of our collective rejoicing. Another miracle to rejoice about? The vaccine. It's far from mundane itself, of course, but those common little pleasures that we once enjoyed and so took for granted, those are going to feel like amazing miracles when we get to resume them in the not too distant future.
I met Wes and his mom for the first and only time as I came off the hiking trail to the gravel path in my favorite park. They were standing in the middle of the path, and I stopped, putting on my mask, and nodded to his mom that it was fine. They should finish what they were doing. What they were doing, or rather what Wes was doing, was blowing wishes, one stalk at a time, from the fistful of dandelion heads in his hand. I had, in coming down the trail at just that moment, stumbled into grace. Once again, unbidden, undeserved. And I paused, which is really all that's required of one in a moment of magic, to be fully present. So when Wes got to the last stalk and turned toward me, offering his precious gift, my mind quickly weighed the COVID risk against the outstretched arm of the small, earnest boy before me, and there was no question that I would accept this gift. I, who had carefully kept distance and washed hands, took the dandelion as he instructed me in the seriousness of wish-making. You can't tell anybody, he said, or it won't come true, I offered. I took a moment to consider, then took a breath, drawing the wish deep inside my body until it filled me. Then turning away from Wes and his mom and facing downwind, I blew. I blew with a single long, slow exhalation, practice born of many years of birthday candles, as tiny white parachutes carried the seeds away from me until my breath was gone and only a few stubborn stragglers clung to the stem. Wes reclaimed the dandelion and finished off the strays. When I was a kid, I always wished for world peace, I told his mom, even though what I really wanted was a bicycle. Kids should be able to wish for bicycles. World peace is our problem, she agreed. And so we parted. Our role in the circle of life, at least where dandelions are concerned, fulfilled for the moment. My wish? Well, I already have a bicycle.